A very good evening, a warm welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, where I have a glass of wine in hand, which is certainly not unusual, but I have it for a particular reason. I'm raising a duo of toasts. So the first of those is to someone who's not quite having a glass of wine yet. He probably needs another year or two before we get him onto something nice and light, like a Cinsault or a nice juicy Grenache. It is the birthday of 5-year-old Aidan Socrates Nicol. My son turns 5 today, so very happy birthday to Aidan. But it is also a birthday, an anniversary, I'm not sure which term we use, but Seriously Old Dirt is twice that age. Seriously Old Dirt turned 10 last week. Hence the video kicking off the show, the brand that hasn't overtaken the C and the M series, but it certainly gives them a good run for their money in terms of awareness and catching headlines and winning awards and acclaim, as we'll discover a little later on in the show, which is shorter than usual. Normally we're an hour or thereabouts. Today, just a half hour, so I can go and celebrate my son's birthday before the wretched curfew kicks in. But what we lose in quantity, we're certainly making up for in quality, as returning to the show, the man behind Vilafonte, the man behind Seriously Old Dirt, who's the chairman of Stellenbosch Wine Routes, amongst the many rather jauntily styled hats he wears, Mike Ratcliffe. Welcome back to Dan Really Likes Wine.
Hey, Dan. Hi to all the listeners. Great to be back on the show.
Well, congratulations. We both have glasses in hand, raising them to my dear son, but also to your own success. 10 years of Seriously Old Dirt. Before we jump into the history of it and how it came about and how it's become such an important part of the Vilafonte offering, a decade on, even somebody as relentlessly optimistic and positive and focused and determined as you are must be just a little bit surprised, very pleasantly so, at quite how well Seriously Old Dirt has done in just 10 years.
Well, that is a kind of silly name, isn't it, Dan? So, yes, surprised probably, but fundamentally, I think people like a bottle of wine that tastes delicious, and they like to pay a fair price for it. So over time, that's really the entire business plan we have there. But pleasantly surprised is definitely the answer. And despite the fact that we aren't able to sell wine at the moment, I think there are a lot of happy Seriously Old Dirt fans out there guzzling through their supplies at the moment.
Well, tell us the story of it. It sits within the context of Vilafonte. Perhaps first, for people who maybe don't know the Vilafonte story, we've told it a few times on the show, but it's a great one to retell nonetheless. Remind us of how it came together and the two rather well-known American wine figures who kicked off this journey with you.
Well, we may have to have another celebration next year, because 2022 marks the 25th anniversary of Vilafonte. So we're getting all geared up. It's also 25 years since my two American partners, Dr. Zelma Long and Dr. Phil Fries, decided to acquire a piece of land in South Africa and plant grapes in it. And essentially, Phil Fries had done his postgrad doctorate in the great old soils of the world, and he wondered, when he came to South Africa, he found literally the oldest soils in the world, and he wondered what would happen if you stuck Cabernet Sauvignon or other classic varieties into that soil. And hey presto, 25 years later, here we are. So that's really what it was about. And we are still 24 and a half years down the track. We are still partners. We are only 3 partners in the business. Phil Fries is in charge of viticulture, Zelma Long's winemaking partner, and I'm in charge of running the business and doing the marketing. So it's been a great ride. So it's wonderful to be able to celebrate again and again.
So Vilafonte kicks off. You've got 2 proper rock stars of American wine as your wing people for this particular adventure. And 14 and a half years into this journey, up springs this new wine. We know now where the name comes from, and I think it's a cool name. It's slightly silly, but in a very cool way. But what sparked the idea of producing this and giving us what we now drink as Seriously Old Dirt?
Well, it was actually 2002 that the first vintage of Seriously Old Dirt appeared on the scene, but it wasn't called Seriously Old Dirt. It was literally all the wine that was left over after we had finished blending the Series M and the Series C. And every year, depending on the vintage, it was a little bit more or a little bit less, but we always had some wine that perhaps stylistically didn't quite fit into the style of our two flagships. So for many years, we literally sold the wine. We sold it for a long time to a long-standing client of ours in Chicago who bottled it under his own label. We sold some of it in South Africa for a few years, but eventually we got to the point where we were tasting, let's say, the third wine of Vilafonte that was getting sold off in bulk. And we just said, guys, this juice is too good. We've got to come up with another plan. And so we jumped in and took the decision that against all of our best judgment, we weren't going to have another wine, but we decided to launch another wine. And that's where the goofy name came from, because my partner, Dr. Phil Fries, he's got this crazy American accent, and he is, with a PhD in soil microbiology, he is a nutcase when it comes to soil, and he knows that South Africa has the oldest soils in the world. And whenever he refers to the Vilafonte soil type on our property, he actually refers to it as like, hey man, that's some seriously old dirt. And the name stuck.
And I'm very glad it did, because it's worked out really well. It's developed an army of great fans. One of them is Mpo Sugar, who's watching at the moment. Love seriously old dirt, says Mpo. You're certainly not the only one. When you create a wine like this in South Africa, it's generally seen as the second label, and there's an inferred inferiority in comparison to what it's coming on from. This is certainly not an inferior wine, but it speaks to, I think, a different viewpoint we have in this part of the world. Take wines in Burgundy, where they have the idea of declassifying wine, where often you're getting stuff that's almost as good as something a level above, but it's for reasons of volume rather than quality that a decision has often been made. So explain to us how Seriously Old Dirt fits into that kind of thinking.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. So, and the answer is not as black and white as you might think. But what I can say is that Series C, which is a Cabernet-based blend, and Series M, which is a Merlot-based blend, they operate within very tight quality parameters. It's either in or it's out. There's no real gray area with that wine. And so there's certainly an element of striving for perfection. And I don't think there is such a thing as perfection in wine, but the closer we can get to the dream, the closer we're going to try to get to the dream. When it comes to Series C, it is very particular, and Series M, very particular. Seriously Old Dirt is a little bit more loose. It's a bit more relaxed. It's a bit more Tuesday night around the briar. It's not defined by varietal, although, having said that, over the last few years, Cabernet Sauvignon once again has been raising its hand. And if the last 2 years of anything to go by, or last 3 years are anything to go by, Seriously Old Dirt is predominantly Cabernet every single year. But it just allows us the opportunity to be a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more flexible, and not to worry too much about the dotting the I's and crossing the T's. Having said that, the wine is quintessentially Vilafonte, and if it's got our label on it, it better be good. There's one more thing that I think is important, is it gives us a little bit of flexibility to experiment. So we are able to experiment on particular techniques or to particular grapes or particular barrels when we are making Series M and Series C. And the objective of an experiment is to do something better. On occasion, though, the experiments don't work, and maybe the wine isn't good enough or better enough to go into Series C or Series M, and we've simply got somewhere to put it. So Seriously Old Dirt does benefit from all the high-level experiments that are going on with Series C and Series M.
Which suggests then that there is a flexibility to what we get each year. How prescribed is the style? How much will one vintage change from another?
There is definitely vintage variation, but there is not quality variation. And that's quite an important distinction. It's not something that everybody understands. Vintage variation is where the positive characteristics of a particular vintage would be reflected in a wine. We actively seek out that character trait in the wine, and that is why it remains a blend. You know, in a year where the Cabernet is exceptional, the Cabernet portion of the blend will go up, and similarly, in a year where the Merlot is exceptional, the Merlot will go up. So yes, there is variation, but it's positive variation. But what is quality variation? quality variation is where the tangible quality and the quality that a consumer could perceive goes up and down, and that's not acceptable to us. So it's a very subtle differentiation, but it's very important, and it's great to be able to explain it.
Grant Saul's watching over on YouTube. This is an amazing wine, one of the best value for money blends in the market. No wine cellar is complete without Seriously Old Dirt or Vilafonte series wines. I like the fact that Grant, who's a great supporter of the show, has linked the two there. How much does Seriously Old Dirt serve as a gateway to the M and the C series, which are they're expensive wines in a South African context, but justifiably so. They're excellent wines. This Seriously Old Dirt, does it give a lot of people their step up towards Vilafonte?
Yeah, boy, you're nailing it with the questions tonight, Mr. Nicol. That's another perler. So it's actually a two-way street, and it surprised us in a very positive way. Your initial observation is spot on. It does allow a lot of people who perhaps can't afford to, or perhaps are not inclined to, spend up to a Series M or even a Series C. It does allow them to get into our Vilafonte family, experience what Vilafonte is all about, taste the Vilafonte wine, and that happens a lot. It also allows us to perhaps get out of more traditional channels and not feel bad at all about selling a wine in Checkers, for example, because real people buy their wine in Checkers and in supermarkets. So it allows us to be a little bit more flexible. But there's the part of it that has really surprised us over the years is the number of very loyal clients at the very top of the wine food chain who perhaps on a Tuesday night would have consumed something else around the braai with their mates because they don't want their drunken friends to consume their case of Series C. And so on a Tuesday night, they would be able to open 2 or 3 bottles of Seriously Old Dirt, feel very good about themselves, impress their friends, but not having to eat into the mother load in their cellar.
It also allows you to do something else, which is drink some Vilafonte without drinking the C and M, and thus keep the C and M for that longer period of time and do them the justice that the wine deserves. Hang on to them for the next 5-10 years rather than demolishing them the week after they arrive in their personalized wooden cases, as you so thoughtfully send them out in. To what extent is this a wine that's going to keep as well, that should be hanging on to, or are you making it as something that's there for reasonably early consumption?
That's a good question. At the end of the day, for the last 20 years, or certainly since our first vintage, 2003, was released, we've had this, let's say I've rather had this strange message which has gone out into the market to anybody that would listen on any continent, in any city in the world, said, please buy my wine, please buy Vilafonte, but please don't drink it yet. Please put it in your cellar and think about it for the next 5 years, maybe 10, how about 20? And really, my financial manager and even other members of my team say, why would you say that to somebody, Mike? Tell them to buy the wine and drink it, because next year we're going to ask them to buy some more. So in the area that I operate in, at the relatively serious end of the wine spectrum, we are actively encouraging people to drink it. And for many, many years, we had a list of wines from South Africa that we really respected, that were generally available. And we would actually give that list to our members and say, here's your case of Vilafonte. Please put it in your cellar. And here's a list of other people's wines that we just think are delicious. And please go buy these wines for your Tuesday night braais. Don't drink your Series M or your Series C in year 1 around the braai when all your mates are around. So Seriously Old Dirt has kind of stepped into that breach and allowed us to sell something to our customers that we actually encourage. Buy it today, drink it tonight. If you run out, buy some more tomorrow. The price point lends itself to that, and the style of the wine lends itself to that. And I do think we should talk about the style of the wine, because while it retains all the key Vilafonte DNA, it's a different style to the rest of our portfolio.
Well, I will do it. I'm tempted to ask you what wine you are telling people to buy for a Tuesday night instead of drinking your Series M or Series C. I suspect it's, the more entry-level stuff like the Gem out of Waterford or some 1694 from Ruston Frieda. But I won't put you in that particular spot. I will ask you about the style because I was headed there as it was. What you've produced, given that you've got two outstanding partners and who know their wine so well, is going to be something that speaks to the best of the terroir that this seriously old dirt can offer. What was the initial guidance towards arriving at what you have with this style of wine?
Well, there have been two generations. We're currently moving into the second generation, which I'll tell you about. The first generation was very simple, and you alluded to it earlier. Series Old Dirt started its life as very simply as a second wine, a Vilafonte, and really simply anything that stylistically didn't make it into Series M or Series C went into Seriously Old Dirt. And on the rare occasion that a particular barrel wasn't good enough for Seriously Old Dirt, then we would get rid of it. There's no other wine. And that was the first generation. But subsequently, Seriously Old Dirt is evolving. It's maturing. The style remains lightly oaked, not too heavily oaked, but it's still very much French oak. It's still very much a Bordeaux style blend. And probably the most interesting thing that I do at the moment is developing this concept that we are creating of being explorers. As a winemaking team, we are constantly on the lookout for new things. And we've been exploring for the last 3 or 4 years, searching for other great sites that perhaps are planted on equally old or sometimes even older soils in the Western Cape. And we have been identifying unique and interesting sites. We've been identifying sites of geological interest. We have engaged, we're engaging David Simon. We've put a team together. We're actually documenting these old sites, documenting the old soils. And we're finding that we're able to identify vineyards that have got more nuance, that are adding more complexity. And even though as Seriously Old Dirt grows, it's actually becoming a better wine. So that's probably phase 2. And phase 2 is just beginning. It's only 2 or 3 years old, but it's very exciting. And it's certainly one of the most challenging, but definitely the most rewarding things that I've ever done in the world of wine is seeking out great vineyards planted on great old soils. It's absolutely fascinating. I'm learning so much. There's so much more to be learned, though.
And when you get to do it in partnership with one of the world's great soil experts, the results are unsurprising. So you've got your latest vintage, and there is reason for celebration on top of these celebrations we are already raising glasses to, and that involves Lord, your last wine has got. Now, the Decanter World Wine Awards are a very serious set, and there we go, 94 points for the 29 Seriously Old Dirt, Mr. Ratcliffe.
That's very exciting, very, very exciting, and actually to see it live on the big screen, that's nice. This is something, as you know, is only being shared later this evening. So I guess this is a global exclusive, Mr. Nicol. But yes, very, very exciting for us. And while Vilafonte has never been a winery that's really paraded itself around about scores and things, there is a certain delight in finding that phase 2 of our business model, the evolution of Seriously Old Dirt to become an explorer brand of old, interesting, significant sites is actually paying off. And there it is, 94 points. So we're super chuffed. We might even celebrate with a glass of wine tonight.
I suspect that might well be the case, as it will with everybody who's still got wine, and I hope that all of you watching are in that particular category. Bo Sugar, congratulations to the winemaker and the team. Thank you. Bo, congratulations indeed. In real terms, how much does this sort of award affect not just you, but in general, the wine industry? Is there a tangible impact on your sales, on your brand recognition, on the way people are seeing who you are as a wine brand?
I think all positivity tends to accumulate. So this adds to that accumulation. It's another positive thing. For some customers that have never tried Seriously Old Dirt, they might be inclined to try it. For customers that have been drinking it for the last 10 years, they would say something like, "Yep, I knew that already," and they might buy another case. But I guess ultimately we're very blessed in the sense that we have a massive army of loyal fans all around the world. So we are blessed in the sense that our customers do buy our wine with some gusto. But to answer your question, yes, if somebody says something nice about you and they say nice things over time, it's going to have a positive impact.
You're getting some congratulations from other parts of the wine world. Victor Mofokeng, 94 points. That's good wine. Victor Mofokeng from Kruger Charlati, the luxury train up on the bridge in the Kruger. And then Victor adding that he has it on his wine list. So if you get up to Charlati, I haven't been to Charlati myself, but I've got a number of friends who have been and rave about it. You will be able to find the Seriously Old Dirt there. Helen Nicol, my mum is watching, drinking wine out the bottle as usual. This is fascinating. Well done, Vilafonte, and happy birthday, Aidan, from your Seriously Old Granny. Thank you, mum. I'll have to get some of that wine to you in Belfast. And Daryl Balfour, we've been missing you, Daryl. Haven't seen you on the show for a few weeks. Seriously Old Dirt, Seriously Old Wine from the White River Wine Collective. He's got a larger cellar than most actual wine estates, does Mr. Balfour. So great to have people watching and sending in their messages. You've had so much success with the M Series and the C Series, 25 years next year, all manner of awards around the world. 10 years now, 94 points to cancel with the Seriously Old Dirt. You were never going to make the Seriously Old Dirt. You were only going to make 2 red wines. You've now got a third. Does this kind of success just start a little voice in the back of the head saying, well, maybe there's something else we can do here?
No.
You seem unsure.
I'm pretty sure about it. I think that the 3 wines is like having 3 children. It's an absolute handful, and if you're not very careful, you can lose focus. So if I were to go in any direction, it would be 2 wines, not 3. But I'm not going to go into that because that would be purely speculative. But I think you can take it fairly safely that from Vilafonte there'll be nothing else. I was saying to my team this morning, actually, that we have something like 60 wines in our portfolio because we have kept more than 2,500 bottles of every vintage of Series M and Series C we've ever produced. We've got a vast library of incredibly well-matured wines that have been temperature controlled and in the dark for decades. And so the amount of choice for a Vilafonte Wine Club member is quite staggering, the number of different vintages. But still, we only produce Bordeaux Blend, and we only produce 3 wines. We've just got we got a different wine from every vintage. And I think that keeps me pretty well occupied, Mr. Nicol.
I shall record this conversation just in case. The other 3 we've got certainly do deliver for us. As Angela Lloyd puts it, don't forget, Seriously Old Dirt seriously over-delivers. Thank you, Angela, one of South Africa's preeminent voices. Reginald Peckler up at Cheetah Plains. Sheesh, we've got all of the Kruger on the show tonight. Simply the best. Seriously Old Dirt, indeed a work of time for serious winemaker. Mike, if you know, you know. Cheers. Thanks, Reggie. Good to have you on the show. And Daryl backing us up from his wine fortress on the other side of Nelspruit. What Angela says. Seriously Old Dirt seriously over delivers. All right, so we know that it has been particularly successful. We know that you're on a great path in terms of all 3 of the wines, and I'm looking forward next year to that 25-year vertical tasting we'll be doing together on Dan Really Likes Wine, which will be very exciting. I want to ask you a quick question before I let you go, Mike, just more broadly speaking. Take off the Vilafonte hat, slip on the Stellenbosch Wine Routes hat. We know we're in the middle of another lockdown at the moment. It's an industry that keeps getting knocked down, keeps getting up, but every time it's just that little bit harder to get back up. The battering has been immense. What is your sense on the health of the Stellenbosch wine community at the moment?
It's a tough question because people are very good at hiding their illnesses. So I would say that the industry in general is taking a lot of pain. The wineries that have spent time over the last decades developing the export markets are feeling very little at the moment because exports are booming. So ultimately, it comes down to the health of your business in general. Ultimately, it comes down to the strength of your brand. So I would say that wineries that have developed their brands successfully over time are having a better time than those that aren't. I would say that Stellenbosch is in reasonable shape. There is definitely pain around, but people are able to export. I also have a little bird in my ear telling me that on Sunday night there might be some good news, but you never can trust these little birds. So we'll see. As far as I know, there have not been any bankruptcies in Stellenbosch, but then Stellenbosch is also the home to some of the strongest brands in South Africa. So I don't think it's representative of the industry.
I fervently hope that Sunday's message is as upbeat as you suggest it might be. I also feel that the resilience for which South Africans are so famous, and haven't we seen it over the last week, has perhaps masked some of the longer-term damage that's not going to be over in the short term. Held for a long time to come, but it is a little easier to deal with a good glass of wine in hand, and that's exactly what I have and Mike has. Mr. Ratcliffe, congratulations on the 94 points. Congratulations on 10 years of Seriously Old Dirt and almost a quarter of a century of Vilafonte. I think it's not just a great wine, but it's also a really exciting brand. And I think a lot of people in the South African wine industry have learned a lot from what you and your team have done with Vilafonte. It's a really slick marketing presentation, but the wine's even better, and that makes for a fairly fearsome combination. So thank you. I appreciate the time, and I look forward to seeing you down in Stellenbosch next week.
Thanks, Dan. And before I go, just a quick shout out to Angela Lloyd, because she's the one who conjured up on social media the term Seriously Old Dirt, seriously over delivers. And that little tagline of hers has gone completely viral all the way around the world. So thank you, Angela, for being so good at English.
There we go. One of her many, 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 many contributions to the South African wine industry. So thank you to Angela, to Daryl, to Reggie, to Victor, to Poe, to Grant, and to Helen over in Belfast, all joining in on this evening's show. It is a slightly shorter show than usual because 5-year-old Adrian Socrates Nicol has his birthday, so I'm off to celebrate with my son. I won't give him a glass of wine just yet, maybe when he turns 6. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and here's hoping that when I see you next week, this time we will be celebrating, but do look out on Thursday, amongst others. We've got Lords, who you might say, never heard of them, making some rather cool bubbles out of the Robertson area, and that will be one of my guest wines featuring on Thursday. Stay safe, take care. Hope those wine stocks haven't quite run out yet. I'll see you live on Thursday evening. Big thanks to Mike Ratcliffe from Vilafonte, seriously over delivering with tonight's show. We'll see you back Thursday. Goodbye. To join the Pick and Pay Wine Club, simply SMS your smart shopper number to 36775. It's absolutely free, and you'll get for yourself 3 times the smart shopper points on every bottle of wine bought. You'll also get a 20% discount on 10 different wines each month, a 25% discount on a case of wine, and a Magnum, some terrific competitions and invitations to awesome events.